Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is March 17th, 2025, and we're going to begin today's video by looking at Bitcoin on the weekly. We will check in on Ethereum and Solana to kind of follow up with where we left off on Friday, as this has been a popular request, is to take a look at the two bigger altcoins. There are, of course, others that I get requests for, but those are the two that are most requested outside of Bitcoin. And we'll kind of check in on them every once in a while. But we are going to lead with Bitcoin as it is the primary driver of market direction for the US dollar pairs. And in this case, we're looking at the weekly. Why are we looking at the weekly? Because Bitcoin is still in a weekly Bollinger Band compression. And we did get what I thought we might get is a move up in the Bollinger Bands, which makes last week's low at around that 76,555, a touch or nearly a touch on the lower second standard deviation. So I've mentioned this, it came close, just got front run by a little bit. It was floating between $75,000 and $76,000 while the candle was open last week. Now it has moved up to 80,000, near 80,300. I'd call this $80,000. If we do start to see daily price action dip below here, then that would make the lower third a volatility zone of interest. And that just so happens to be the area that we've been talking about for quite some time now. And that is the high of this prior accumulation last year at the then all-time high at 73,835 before going sideways from March all the way until November. And of course, it was sideways and down. And this would be a retest if it did get there on the daily. If we saw closes below the lower second, then we would be looking for expansion into the support structure over here and not just an initial test of the top side. So in this case, it's pretty easy to kind of derive what we would be looking for to the downside. Now, don't take this as like I think that downside is the most likely. We're going to kind of evaluate that on the daily, and I'll give you some areas of interest to pay attention to here in a moment. But roughly the top side of this accumulation structure here between 68,200 and 44 to that, not roughly, that's the exact number. It's 68,244 on the close open on the weekly to 73,835 on the actual swing high there. That's all fair game. If Bitcoin does start to trade below, especially close below on the daily, this 80,000, you can call it 300, even be a little bit more aggressive, then we would, of course, be looking for it to run last week's low or somewhere around it into the mid 70s and under into that lower third standard deviation and possibly testing the top side of this prior accumulation structure. So that's one thing to look for. But one of the big things that I had mentioned, I believe it was when we were consolidating back here, is when moving from expansion into compression of the Bollinger Bands here. Yes, we are seeing some volatility expansion within the bands, but initially on first pass, when moving from expansion into correction, we look to the lower second and upper second standard deviations as initial support and initial resistance. So that doesn't always hold true, but it's true enough that we're looking for that to hold on a close until we see closes below. If we see closes below that lower second, then we would be looking for expansion down into an area of support. In this case, initially that 68 to about that 73 to almost $74,000. And that would be, your initial expansion down. If it didn't already hit that area, I'd be looking for that area to get hit. Same to the top side here. The upper second standard deviation around 108, just shy of the all-time high. We would need to see the all-time high broken on a close, plus a close above the upper second. Initially, we'd look to the upper third, somewhere around 115, 116. and then we'd be looking for close over close expansion to the upside. Same for the downside here. Just a close below the lower second doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get a close over close, but we would be looking for close over close expansion if it was going to be a true expansion into support, and then we could start deriving targets that were further down into the support structure. Right now, it's not really worth doing that unless we see a move happen intra-week here. As it stands right now, we're getting exactly what we've been talking about for quite some time. If we drop down to the daily, we can see that Bitcoin has not really done much since we had talked last on Friday. So in this case, what are we looking for here? We're looking for a downtrend break, and because we did not get a lower high close here, we're looking for a lower high downtrend break on a swing structure where we have a lower high swing here at 85,318 to a swing higher low as it stands at this particular moment, right around $82,000, slightly under there at 81. What is this? It's 81,969. Nice. So ideally for the bulls, they want to see closes above 81,969 here. Maintained, and then take out that 85,318. Now, of course, that is confluent with this first bearish candle from the expansion down below. So we had the compression right at the resistance for Bitcoin's daily price action, then a blast off through that resistance, the first bearish candle that came in on that expansion. The low side is at $85,000. We've talked about this quite a bit. That's also where the daily basis band is now. So Bitcoin is still living in the bearish half of the bands here. It does need to break out and start closing in the bullish half of the bands above around $85,000. Take out that swing high, and then the real closing high to break is up here just shy of $93,000 at 92,817. So that would be a true structure change on a close. Then we can start to entertain higher low equal low structure and kind of go from there. Now, if we did see this close in a big green candle from here, let's say, and set this as a low, could you argue that that is your higher low? We'll see what develops from here, but realistically, we've got 1-2 drives down towards the lows. I wouldn't actually, it wouldn't be bearish, in my opinion, if Bitcoin came back down to test around that 80,000, right around this area, 79,890, right around that lower second standard deviation on the weekly, maybe even slightly below to the daily lower second here. As it relates to the weekly. Now, it would be $2,000 under that weekly lower second, but testing down into this area while maintaining this low wick at 76,555, even on shorter term time frame closes, and then turning around from there would look pretty good. That's where we could potentially see if it does drop, look for those areas as areas of interest. If they're lost, of course, we're looking for continuation to the actual low and lower into this top side of the prior ranges highs. Otherwise, I would be aware of the possibility of, kind of a triple low swing setup here. We often see stuff like that, 3 spikes down here and a spike back up. We had 2 and then 1 up. We had 3 and then a failure and then down. But, it's essentially, it's going to be based on, kind of what I'd want to see for bullish divergence. And in this case, we can build bullish divergence off of this Wednesday, the 26th of February low structure, which was over here on the closes where Bitcoin is finding some significant resistance right around that $84,000 to $85,000 anyway. And as long as we saw it maintaining this low, that would be bullish, or even if it swings down under it and then closes inside of the 76,555 and maybe hits some levels, that would, still be good for building some bullish divergence. Let's go ahead and take a look at RSI here, see where the bearish control zone is. Edge of the bearish control zone is going to be down here. And let's see, that is going to be right around $79,000. So again, we're getting fairly close to the edge of that lower second or slightly below it on the weekly. But that would still put it above the daily lower second, which could act as a pivot zone, provided it is closed above. And in this case, where could price still be building bullish divergence? I'll tell you, it's going to be spiking the highs from last year's accumulation. It could still build bullish divergence from there. In fact, let's go ahead and turn this on, and let's see what this low read is from the 26th. That's going to be a 24. So as long as it's closing above a 25 down there, we can actually get a number for where it could still build bullish divergence. We'll take the critical zone and raise that up to a 25 and take a look at what the number would be at the extremes. And that would be at 61,156. We'd be digging very deep into the zone down below. And quite honestly, building bullish divergence down there is likely going to see significant sell side pressure on any moves back to the upside. But, I wouldn't be looking too much lower, at least initially, if it did hit some of those areas. But that would be like the extreme case of where it could build bullish divergence from on the daily. Let's go ahead and take a look at the at maybe some more bullish news. It's not quite all roses right now, but the bulls do have an opportunity here, having held this zone for a little over a week, or about a week. So if we were to take a look here at the range look on the bands, lower second, right around that $78,000, right around the swing low here, the initial swing low down here that has not been closed below at that 78,167. If it is lost, we're looking at daily expansion down, probably a price replace band right around that lower third standard deviation. Again, we're looking somewhere around $75,000, probably a dip in to test this zone if it did start to initiate a move like that, especially on a daily close below. Otherwise, swings below, closes above would actually be fairly bullish for this accumulation here, or turn it into accumulation instead of continuation. But again, we have lower lows, lower highs. This is still a downtrend. Don't fade the trend until the end of the trend. And we have to see a trend break and then higher low equal low structure develop from there. And that may take some time. To the upside here, you can see the upper second standard deviation is at $92,000. And if we go ahead and not alerts, we want to go ahead and throw on local support and resistance. You'll see, this is the zone above is kind of what we have been talking about for quite some time. We talked about this area over here. We talked about the $85,000 that did get front run and then fell below and then immediately moved down to some of our areas of interest there in the mid to upper 70s. And in this case, you can see where the basis is lining up with that swing low of that first bearish candle after the post expansion from that range down there. And you can see that the upper first is right there at 88,500, just below the 1.168 or 16.8% above the prior cycle high at $69,000. We're looking at 88,700. Upper first is basically right there. So we have our Bollinger Band levels lining up pretty cleanly with our support and resistance areas of interest. In this case, resistance overhead with the basis at the wick low at 85. We've got right around that 88.5 to $89,000, kind of where that weekly low is, coming in line with the daily upper first. Upper second is bracketing that red zone. This was the ever important zone that once we saw it close below, obviously was going to be the breakdown, which we did see. That's right around $92,000. And then even the upper third hanging out right around the bottom side of this consolidation before the big move down. And in between there, we have the big weekly close open higher low, not the swing higher low, but the close open higher low at 93.5. So there is significant overhead resistance still in play, even if Bitcoin does move back to the upside. So just look for either continuation to the downside on a lower high around this 85 region, closes below $82,000 likely going to paint that. I would still want to see additional confirmation below 81.5 or so, below the daily lower first, at least test these lows again, and then look to see how price hangs out around 78 to 80 in this case. If that is lost, we're going in for a retest. Otherwise, keep an eye on that 85 to around that 89, and specifically above there, we need to see 92, and then of course this lower high at just shy of 93, right below that weekly close open recovered. That would be the trend break from here for the daily, and that's what the bulls want to aim for. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few other things here. We'll get rid of the local support and resistance areas of interest. And we'll take a look at daily Stoke. 81,260 is going to be the momentum pivot for a regular Stoke here. And of course, Bitcoin's hanging out just shy of 84. We do need to see it really breaking out above 85 though, or else this is going to turn bearish on additional closures below 85. This will start to flip back around. We've already seen this high kind of painted. It is a closing high, but it isn't in the same breath. Like, we did get that Sunday candle that kind of closed below the Saturday candle, so it is calling it a high. I don't consider it the significant high just yet, unless we see price drop a little bit further. Then we can mark this as the lower high to beat, as the significant lower high to beat. It would be a structure change from here. It'd just be a tight one. So I will have to walk back my original statement on that because of the Sunday close. But let's take a look at the 2-day. What does the 2-day got on offer for us? The 2-day did just open on closes above $81,000, and it would look good for a momentum shift. And again, lower high is going to be at that in fact, yeah, there's some work to do for the 2-day. Closes above 95,130 is the lower high to beat currently in terms of a swing. Encouraging above $90,000 for the closing lower high though, at least to go test that area. And again, that would put price above the basis band here. We did get a close open above the lower first, so we're starting to check some things off here. But it's bearish half of the bands. Need to see closes above 89.5, which is slightly above the swing low up here, and then go for that upper first area by that swing high there at 95 or so. That would start to look a little bit better, but again, it can build out throughout this week. Close above 81 would get a momentum flip here. We're already seeing a bullish divergence play out. I kind of want to see another one, to be quite honest. 3-day, let's take a look at the 3-day. 3-day has a chance to flip on closes above 83,338, so about 83,350. We would see momentum start to flip back to the upside. No real bullish divergence as it stands right now until we see closes above $85,000. Also would want to see this getting above the lower first here and start making its way back to right around $93,000. And again, same area of interest on closes for the swing high to get a downtrend break here in earnest at that 95 or just above 95. A little bit more encouraging for the 3-day here is it's going to close with the next 2-day candle. In fact, I believe we'll talk about this again on Wednesday, right? Because it is the Tuesday candle that's open right now, the Tuesday session, even though it is still Monday for me. 87,250 would look encouraging on closes coming into that Wednesday session or session end, because I'll be talking to you on Wednesday after the Wednesday session is closed. So we'll see where things kind of end up. But that would start to look good to start to build at minimum here. Let's take a look at the 4-day. 4-day's got 4 days to go. So we'll talk about this on Friday. Do we have any potential here? Yes, we have a big old momentum divergence, in fact, from the last time that Bitcoin was down here in terms of momentum. What does that look like for a shift here? Possible on closes above 82,750. Let's take a look at the 5-day. 5-day is going to be closing with the next 4-day, so we'll talk about it on Friday, and that's going to be at 83.3. So, you know, this is something to watch if these lows hold. Bitcoin could pop up. I would still be aware of where it puts in highs because it could build this bearish divergence. Now, granted, this was in an uptrend, and this is now a broken trend. So this is a trend break. Got to be aware of lower highs, and then from there we'd be quite honestly looking for consolidation, and then kind of come back to it. But yeah, that's kind of where we stand weekly. What are we looking at? $96,000. $96,000 to shift momentum. If we were to see it this week, would put Bitcoin above the basis band here at 94.2. Now the last high to beat on the weekly, this is a lower low, so it does need to beat at minimum the close open lower high here at 102.563. But realistically, we need to see what bulls want to see is this become a deviation and then take out the all-time high here because we have a lower high with a higher high swing, but we went from lower high close to lower low close. So in order for this to become a deviation, we need to see Bitcoin on the weekly, kind of recover and then work its way back up and take out 109.360 and kick off expansion to the upside above that upper second standard deviation as it stands right now. And we'll see how that plays out through the rest of this week. Let's go ahead and check on what I told you I would check on, and that is let's check on Ethereum real quick here. This is going to be very quick. I'm not going to explain this chart. It's weekly support and resistance areas of interest. It needs to recover the red zone. This is basically a zone that had been holding as support for quite some time on the weeklies. It lost it and even lost it, back tested it, rejected it, came down to support here. Just below this 17 or 1800 with the low there coming in at 1754. From a weekly time frame, bulls need to recover 2100, take out last week's high at 2152 to set a low, and then start working its way above 2300. And eventually it's got to work its way back up here and take out this 2855 up here to break the downtrend. So it might take a little bit here for Ethereum. Daily looks as though, it's got some potential to try for the 21 if it can hold the lows. It needs to set a freaking low here. It needs to close above 1962. I said this, the same number as Friday. If it can do that and then head back to, just shy of $2,000 or just over $2,000 to 2,100 and reclaim this red zone, then it's got a chance to try and dig itself out of here with this nice touch on a major support area down below. If it does happen to fall below right around 1,800, then I would be interested in just below 1,700 to the upper 1,600 area, 1,675 to 1,700. Anywhere below there, we're looking down to that lower third in the 1,500 region. And then come back to it later. Not much to be made of this. I mean, momentum is pointed to the upside. There's not too much happening. If it does set a low, it'll get bullish divergence, but it's not very interesting right now. Let's look at momentum. Closes above 1842. Good to keep momentum back to the upside. Is there anything encouraging on this weekly, though? Is there anything going on the weekly? 2289. So basically, to flip the weekly momentum back around still would be in a downtrend, in a bearish downtrend. But to give it a shot to try and break it, it would need to close above 2,300 and start making its way back to this lower high to try to break that. And then that would start to look a little better. Is it getting to like some critical areas? Sure. Could it reverse off the lower second and pop back up? Sure. Below 3K, it's still in the bearish half of the bands. Would want to see it above there and running 4K again. How long does that take? Well, we're looking at a weekly, so it's got to dig itself out in the meantime. But we'll see if it can get started this week. We do, of course, have on Wednesday rate decisions from and the FOMC meeting. So Powell will be out there talking. I believe that we're looking at in this case, for Powell, I don't think we're looking at any rate changes. I don't think the market expects any. Yeah, so they're as far as I know, yeah, rate decision, no change, essentially, and it would be a surprise if there was a change. So that would actually rock the markets, I think, more than the lower term time frame volatility that we typically get when things are kind of expected not to change. Let's go ahead and take a look at Solana, and then we'll wrap this up, and I'll let you all go. Solana, of course, came down to some major weekly areas. Yes, this chart is differentiated a little bit from that other one, but still major weekly areas of interest. Solana came down and got a close open right around that 118, slightly below, coming in at, no, it actually got 118.24 because this is 118.71. But we have a big weekly zone between you can essentially call it it's 127, but you can call it 130 to around 80, 78 on the bottom side there to be exact. But between like 130 and 80, there's a big weekly zone. And in between, there's a big weekly area of interest between around, you can call this 120 to about $100. It's 98 to 118 here. But Solana spiked it, did put in a lower high here. What Solana bulls want to see is a higher low and then take out this lower high. So it closes back above 136.71. So basically 137 would look good. If it can close above 130.65, it would actually set a higher low right here and then try for that 136.71 and then, eventually work its way back up to 169, 170 up here. Absolutely needs to take out this swing high where we saw the twin tower candles here at 180. That would look good to at least go back and test 200. What's the daily looking like? Daily's strong above 120. It's got a little bit of room as long as Bitcoin's cooperating. Weekly, need to see 150 closed above. So realistically, on the weekly, it could regain that lower first and turn momentum, possibly come back in for some mean reversion all the way back up to $200. And then we have to evaluate it because this is we had this consolidation, lower lows, lower highs, big boom up, higher low, higher high, and then, basically basing off of major support here on the weekly. Don't want to see it lost. I'm going to tell you, Solana bros and gals here, you do not want to see the support lost because it will get very painful. So pray for Bitcoin to hold up on its lows. That's kind of where we're at on that one. But it's in a better daily trend break position than Ethereum as it stands right now. But things could change immediately after I end this video. So let's go back to Bitcoin here, yeah, wrap this up. So on Wednesday, obviously there is the FOMC meeting, so be aware of that. I will also have a check-in video where I'll take a look at Bitcoin. I might as well take a look at Ethereum and Solana as we have now started to talk about this stuff. And I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about on Wednesday. Back half of the week with some major closes on longer term timeframes. That 4-day and 5-day coming in. So that's going to be big to watch. And of course, we'll have the 2- and 3-day to talk about on Wednesday after the close. And yeah, I'll talk to you then. So you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.